Hello, everyone, and good morning once again. Welcome to the second panel of our Forum of Ideas. The dominant imaginary that results from air pollution, climate change, or the pandemic of COVID-19 thinks and conceives of a world in which nature must be protected for human action. We see a context that does not even distinguish the profit of large financial companies that extract raw materials on an industrial scale from small local practices that sustain their lives with their hands. Yet the human condition cannot be separated from nature because it is an intrinsic part of the same social and cultural metabolism. From the eastern Fertile Crescent to the Amazon, the interdependence of the human species with other non-human species has been shown to encourage ecosystem diversity. We know that life did not conquer the planet through struggle, but through cooperation. Life forms have multiplied and become more complex by associating with others, not by annihilating them, as Lina Margulies suggests. So we have to think very carefully about how to elaborate abstractions. If stories and fiction build words and worlds, it matters what stories we tell so that we can tell other stories. We cannot lose the memory of places that carry the history that is not written only by human narratives. The cosmos, the climate, the bacteria, or technology also have their history here. For that, and for this second panel, focus on how to preserve the legacy, the region, and renew its future as heritage for new generations with interspecies projects. We will be joined by Nuno Vicente, participant in the first edition of Artifacts, Animali Domestici, design practice focus on the development of experimental and speculative projects behind the dichotomies of cultural and nature, and José María Torres Nadal, architect and former full professor of the Alicante University in Spain. In the next few minutes, they will present their work, context in 10 minutes presentation each, and this will be followed by a conversation based on a series of questions posed by our chair, Nuno Vicente, joined by Carlos Pastor Garcia, my assistant in this curatorial process. So just for a quick presentation, Nuno Vicente is a Master in Fine Arts from Escola Superior de Arte e Design das Caldas da Rainha, and an investigation in Arte y Creación from Faculdade de Belas Artes de Madrid. He has selected for the show Exposição 9010, 20 anos de artes plásticas, in 2011. His work has been most recently been exhibited individually in the exhibitions Estudos para um Jardim Botânico e uma peça para o Rio César, Museu Ecológico de Belmonte, and in the amateur ornithologist, the Centre d'Art de Lèvres de Ephonics, Matadero de Amposta Ben. One accent English and some words that were actually in Spain and in French, but well, this is a presentation, and Vicente, welcome here. Then from Animali Domestici, we have Alicia Lazzaroni and Antoni Vernacchi. Animali Domestici is a design practice focused on development of experimental and speculative projects, products, and processes. Behind the dichotomies of cultural and nature, infra-ordinary and pseudo-normal, human and non-human. So welcome you here at Artifacts, and last but not least, sorry, here I lost here my my cabula, José María Torres Nadal, architect with doctorate from ETSA in Barcelona, professor at the same university and full professor at the Alicante University. He has been a guest lecturer at several American and European universities, as well as a collaborator in the master's degrees at UTS of Sydney. Currently honorary collaborator at the School of Architecture at Montevideo, Universidad de República, José María Torres Nadal works have been selected in MoMA exhibition and published in books as Arquitectura Torres Nadal, un trabajo, or Arquitectura Independiente, prologue by Robert Venturi and Edna. He is currently researching the theme of architecture and statement of earth culture, I mean. So thank you all. Welcome in this forum of ideas of artifacts. So I pass the word now to you, Nuno. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I prepared the talk in Portuguese, but I'm going to try to do it in English. There is like some names that you might have to help me with. But just like to shortly present me is like, so I graduated in painting at first, but I've been doing works in the landscape for the last almost 15 years. And something that is very peculiar or characteristic of my work is that I always try to integrate the natural elements. But I've realized, like the last 3 years, that I had a little bit of romanticist approach to the landscape, which I identified that it was a problem. And in that context, I've been trying to readapt my work, which normally is very it's always like trying to get close to poetry. And I've been in this fight, which sometimes is a bit discomfortable because I'm going outside of my area. So I just want to say that I've been living like the last 2 years in Alicante, which is very dry and doesn't rain a lot. And this has been a very important situation for my work and my understanding, because I realized something very simple is that to help life, you actually need to have water. And when I saw the open call of artifacts, I really liked the idea of working with Katia, the Olera, like the artisan, and the idea of like being able like to work ceramic pieces. So, for example, in the first image is one of the prototypes that we built during the residency, which kind of reproduce an object that is called olla in Spanish and Portuguese. I don't know the name in English, but I'm going to try to explain. So it's like a container that you fulfill with water. And when you put it inside the earth, it's quite interesting because the clay, which is baked, doesn't have any chemicals that allow the water to come out or to retain the water. So the water is like slowly going through the ceramics. And the vegetation that grows around has actually something that is very interesting. That is the roots, the head of the roots are trying to join the material. So it's a very sensitive process that we don't see. But that I find interesting. And so the first attempt that I tried to add with the pieces was like to try to develop artifacts or objects that could somehow retain the water and to give it back. We can pass to the next slide. Carlos, gracias. And so the aim that I had with the residency was like first to do these prototypes, but my idea was like to end up with a situation that could help the living beings, the vegetables and the animals, particularly the insects. And we end up like doing 4 installations, which I cannot show them all because the time is short, but I'm showing one that shows a little bit like the sort of ingenuity, not inventivity, that we try to add with the pieces. So it's like a ceramic pot, a little bit similar to the one that we saw in the slide before. And it has a structure that tries to accumulate the water when it rains, but it's made with an isothermic material, which is old in the center, and originates shade and helps to preserve like this little parcel of the field, which is now very dry, because in Portugal, even though we are between two mountains in the context of Fundão, the land is drying, and so it kind of recollect the water. And the pottery is planted on the floor, so it's going to generate with time a green surrounding and helping with these the insects. We could pass to the next slide, Carlos, please. Hello? Okay, and this is another variant of the piece, which has, here we can see already the water, and we could observe during the installation that the insects were starting to come. Next slide. And so what I did try during the residency was like to use this precept, to not put only water, but to try to find a solution which could be a nutritional help for the insects, which in my aim was to track butterflies. And in the picture, we can see exactly what happened, that with a sugar solution, it created like a piece of sugars outside the pieces, and we could see some insects already coming. And this is for me important because I'm trying to develop a garden of butterflies in the Centro Las Cigarreras in Alicante, in a space of the third landscape. So it's like a garden that is to the abandon, and I want to do it in a free way. So trying to use the local surroundings and to try to invite the local butterflies to come. And we actually did during the residency another piece, which has a little bit dysfunction. And I would pass to the next slide now. So for me, it was also important because we did a lot of pieces to also try outside the field some solutions. And in here, I tried to connect. This is outside the museum where we shown the prototypes. And there is a pipe that is connected to the roof that sort of bring the water when it will rain to this piece that we see in the left side. And that has two compartments. The first one is like a retainer, and the second one lets the water to go down. And in this piece, which is very similar, here we can see two swallows already. So it's a piece that is made for the swallows. And I wanted to show this slide because I find it quite important also, like maybe to think outside the function of the pieces, that the status of the artwork or the artifact or architecture or design can actually, outside the function, help the animals. So what happens is that the nest of the swallows, which happens to be very beautiful, and the birds are also like quite funny, but it happens that the walls that get normally dirty, and this is a problem for the owners, that normally every year they take down the nests. And these birds, they will return every year if the nest is not taken down. So my idea was that by putting a piece beside the nest, I'm kind of assuming that the nests are a part of the art piece. And with this, there is like a symbolic contract with the museum. So to take down the nest will be a little bit like taking a leg to the artwork. And so like more than the function of creating like a place for the birds to drink was a strategic way to think a way to preserve the nests and the attention to this bird. So and during the residency, I'm also very worried with the pollinators and the insects in general. For example, in Europe, we have 75% less insects than 30 years ago, which is a big drama. And during the residency, I also tried to create solutions and tests to attract the bees. And I create a beehive that is made to attract the bees when they are changing their beehive. But I did it in a way that you cannot extract the honey, which for me was an important asset. So like to generate cuidado, to help, and but without this final intention of getting back their product. And I would just pass to the last slide to finish. And this is again outside in this village, which has no one living anymore. To show a piece that kind of condensates several moments that we developed during the residency, and that I'm going to quickly explain. So in the upper part, we have a pipe that is connected to a deposit of 1,000 liters, which puts the water inside, and it is open on the bottom. So it allows birds to come to drink. And then we have like the 5 modules below are dry, are for the bees. And then the last ones, they are humid. So there is a pipe that passes inside and that humidifies the soil. And we also planted some apiaceae, which is the only thing that you can plant at this time of the year. And the idea is that it will create a green vegetation and attract insects. And there is one module that is with the independent, that is just above the last ones, that has a nutritional solution to attract insects. And just to finish, this is like a small story about the piece when I was installing it. So this is, we cannot see it properly, but all around we have houses, and this was like the center of the village. And when I installed this sort of totem inside the village, I realized right away that this was very similar to the pelourinhos, which is this medieval structures or monuments that were like to say that the king is saying that this city exists. And this, for me, was very shocking to realize that after so many centuries, I end up like to create a moment that kind of remembers something that is before humanism, so like in the time of theocentrism, and that I think we could read as a proto symbol of post-anthropocentrism in the assumption that we are now in this time putting in the center of the village or of our cities a multi-species towers that in the end geographically puts the attention to ecocentrism and the species, non-human species. And with that, I'm going to finish, and I apologize for the technical problems as well.
Okay, so we go. 1 second. Okay, so hello everyone, and thanks a lot, first of all, for the invitation. So we would like to share with you some reflections around 4 of some of the main topics that we work with, both in our projects and in our teaching. And we are going to look at some projects related to this that have been mainly developed in the context of Southeast Asia, because we have been living for 5 years in Singapore and then 5 years in Bangkok. Let's say that in our work, we generally try to engage with processes with a higher degree of ecological sensitivity, and especially embracing empirical, situated approaches to try to understand and grasp the complexity of the assemblages that we operate with.
So the ecosystemic corner brings us to the outskirts of Bangkok to share a story that has to deal with trash and numbers, with interspecies cohabitation, organic and cultural matters, failing infrastructure, or interlinked and intertwined, and was communicated through a large tapestry exhibited in Singapore last year and in Berlin until last week. So it started during the monsoon season in a gated community in the outskirts of Bangkok called Ban Kien, one of the main private developments that have spread everywhere around the city. And what was interesting for us that made into the news was that a simultaneous case of Python coming up from the toilet were basically coming to the news. And they were happening everywhere in that district. Understanding and searching a little bit more, we basically realized that the cause was actually found in an extended land subsidence. More and more typical in these days in Bangkok because the city is sinking to basically under the pressure of new development. And this phenomenon caused the pipes to break and therefore it welcomes pythons up and also in the holes that are created. They are basically very cozy spot for these snakes to rest into the rainy season. The entire flood protection system of the city is very complicated. It's expensive, in constant need of upgrades, especially again because of this sinking, and it has a strong dependence on pumps and drainage infrastructure. All these systems are generally failing with certain degrees of regularity, with also, let's say, the smaller scale infrastructure like cloud pipes. And the maintenance is mostly impossible. So it's very interesting because through the failure, these canals are become very awkwardly entangled ecologies, appropriated by an opportunistic ecosystem of sturdy species like pythons, but also monitor lizard, terrapins, water hyacinth, also fed by nitrates of agricultural runoff. But in these villages, you know, like finding a python in your toilet is not always a problem because association with superstition and various cultural layers are stimulating other smaller economies. Lottery, for example, in this case is a serious matter. If you find a snake, for example, in this case hidden in your motorcycle, you can play the number of the plate. And they will bring you luck. This is a case of a major wound that happened last year. So other things are supporting this thriving ecosystem. Obviously, waste is fundamental. Number in raising of waste is related to rodents. And especially in a certain way, people that are in charge of taking care of it, that are firefighters. This guy that you see in the video is called Kun Pino, is the star of Ban Kien. He has a Facebook page that is updated with all its captures. During rainy season, he basically rescue 4 or 5 pythons a day, only in his district. He catch them by hand. He developed a technique that is more gentle, if we can say. And when we met him, we ran in the middle of interview to one of these catches. I mean, it's kind of interesting because every year in the city, around 5,000 pythons are rescued and released. And they are replaced, they are miscarried, they are carried away from the development and in a certain way replaced in the exact moment in which they live. Showcasing how these opportunistic ecological niches are entangled, are thriving, even if they are completely unbalanced by normal standards. If we move to another corner, we live in a certain way feral mappings for more affirmative proposal based on more than human relationship, engaging with a larger group of others that in this case are dragonflies. We come to appreciate them because we had, as many other people, dengue fever caused by mosquitoes when we were in Bangkok. These are my legs suffering. And we become extremely interested in these insects. They have a very specific vision. It's called polarized vision. They confuse black, smooth surfaces as water bodies, and these are generally defined as anthropogenic traps. And so we started to design artificially natural details with dragonfly-centered geometry and color palette derived by the properties of the dragonfly's favorite perching spot. We use different assemblage of black, plastic, let's say, are e-waste, very difficult to recycle properly, timber, glossy back paint to attract these insects and also human. And so we were like looking at these details more as an invitation to this insect to perform a certain position. They have a very specific set of thermolagority position that they generate, wonder if you're looking at them with a little bit of attention. At the same time, we wanted to lower certain conflicts that appears in areas when you have little emergent plants, because these species are extremely competitive for spot. The lighting was meant to attract mostly humans, let's say, but also to not result to disturbing for night pollinators, such as moths that suffer deeply in that area. And again, empiric prototyping, let's say not really academic rigor, but a certain kind of rigor to understand these ecologies in which we were working.
So if we move to the third corner quickly, still deeply immersed in mundane economies, this project called Bangkok Post-Vernacular is a proposal that is now under development and is going to be exhibited at the Seoul Biennale. It reflects on the ecologies and economies of Thai timber, and it's the likability of modern human agents. So mechanical properties and eatability of the timber are considerations, and the taste related to this is important. So the location of different species within the city and the availability of materials like the timber that is reused and found in these scrapyards, and the possibilities of using that in DIY solutions were important considerations. The project basically proposes modifications of existing mundane houses in support of biodiversity. So these modifications should be achievable through normal carpentry tools and small economic investment, making it potentially feasible to create this informal pattern of connected biodiversity supports throughout the city. And in cities that we can consider it impossible to disentangle from our Western point of view. So these architectural landscapes are actually formed through these devices of which here you see some prototyping that is used in the larger prototype that we are creating. Actually have a bottom-up perspective from the perspective of these modern human agents. This is the piece that contains 4 details of this built environment that are combined together. Lastly, moving to the last corner, the performative, in which here we have Jose Maria Torres Nodal among our references. So this is part of our teaching, where we try to engage with imagining alternative stories of cohabitation also with our students, and through different ways and different media. So also by using prototyping, physical and situated engagement, but also, for example, using virtual reality or online platforms of world building. In this work, the subnaturalist bricks that were done in a design and built with year 2 students, these construction elements are actually welcome animals, all such that are usually undesirable, like ants, cockroaches, geckos, and so on, by attracting them with a mix of clay, but together with food coloring, sugar, glittery sand, and other things that have a mixed feeling between what can be attractive but also uncanny. And just to finish on a tiny also note of humor, that is for us one important component in dealing with ecosystemic elements. This project that reflects on the properties of the snail slime, because of its importance in the cosmetic industry in Thailand. There's a very famous brand, the Snail White, that uses the snail slime as a facial product. And this student realized that you can get slime by creating fear or pleasure for the snails. And so she just kind of created the possibility that humans and non-humans kind of share and help each other also in the daily routine that the student was showing in a project. So in conclusion, let's say we are we try to tell open-ended stories of let's say feral ecologies, speculating through them, and using like different methods, different media, different tapping into different contexts and different type of stories, from pythons to harassing dragonflies to looking through the properties of materials, and then this all to like imagine new and alternative scenarios of cohabitation. Thank you, and sorry for going slightly over time.
So sorry. It's my turn, I think. Thank you so much for your invitation. Thank you, Carlos, Nuno, and all of you, Antonio, Animali Domestici. And it's a pleasure, I think, to show you, to share my screen and then to show up and down. And just a moment, this one. Can you see my screen? Okay. So this is the research that I am doing just at this moment after to teach in different places and to work within different students. And I think what is important at this moment is this idea of how to move from the project's culture, the culture of the project, to the earth culture. No, it's not just a question of the names. It's a question, really a very important question about the concept that we are trying to develop at this moment. No, that culture, for me at this moment, is not about to design and to establish the relationship between things and animals and different bodies and different parts of the earth, etc., etc. What is really important for me is how to build the equivalence between different bodies and how to establish the different flows and the equivalence of a technology into different parts in order to redefine the concept of ecology. Ecology is no more a question about, sorry, it's in Spanish, but I think you can understand. Ecology is not something that someone or a team of biologists is working on. It's something that it's a minor culture, something opposite to the concept of opulence that is at the same time crossing the architecture, our body and the planet. And we join and we meet inside the ecology, but at the same time, the ecology is a construction of our avatar, no? Because our body is divided in between the social body and biological body, and so in the middle of these kind of bodies, we can understand better how is the relationship between different parts and different situations. I would like to explain with showing you the work of inspired me at this moment the most, this idea of what is our avatar, how to introduce the concept of ecology in our agenda, and how to build the concept of the culture of the earth instead of the concept of the culture of the project. No, this and how to establish the relationship between this idea of what is ecology, in between sensitive identities that the people and the things at the same time, but at the same time the situated agencies that is talking about, for example, the different kinds of philosophers Donna Haraway or some others. But for the first example for me interesting about the concept of the flows is the work of this shaman painter called Paula Meringo. It is very important to understand how the relationship of shamanic and relationship between the culture of the earth allow him the possibility to establish a relationship between animals, between vegetables, between rocks, between water, and to understand that this kind of fluency in between different parts of this culture, the different culture of that the capitalism culture has separated, you know, zoologists, biologists, botanic, etc., etc. For shamanic situation, everything is the same. Everything is something that I can talk about animal, but at the same time about a plant. I can talk about the human body, about the moon, about the air, the water, etc., etc. And I think for me, a reference to build a new academia. That is very important because all of us, we are teaching at the same time we are thinking about how to build a new situation. This is another to both examples of the situation, how leaves and snakes and butterflies and water and people are at the same thing. But at the same time, I was talking about the equivalence of transfers. I pay a lot of attention to the work of Frederick Heimann, and I will show you 2 or 3 works of Frederick Heimann. As you know, he's an artist, but at the same time, he's a designer, it's choreography, working for fashion. And I think it's very important how to establish this kind of connection in between things that are really different and are really separated at the beginning. No? At this moment, you can see here how the cables are connected to the light in between the robot and the human body. No? And I think it's and to establish the relationship between what happened with Paula Meringo, establishing the flows in between different parts of the earth, is the same that Frederick Heimann is looking for to establish the relationship in this kind of different bodies, this strange body that is at the same time like a robot, like a human body, like an artifact, like a mechanism, and something. This is videos. You can go to the videos on the Instagram of Frederick Heimann and to see this is only a picture, but you can see the movement and you can see this transfer situation that is very important for me because my idea at this moment, you have the things, we have the bodies of the animals, you have the bodies of the people, we have the technology, but the question on architecture and also for design is how to establish this equivalence and relationship and transfer for one thing to the other. This is an example of this artifact, and you can see the sign, the body, the devices, the cables, everything. It's working together. And this is the idea that I think is the most exciting at this moment for all of us, how to understand, how to follow, how to apply for architecture, in this case for us, and how, but also for theorists of or develop our writings, what happened in this world. No? This is the last construction for Lady Gaga. We understand the body is at the same time, it's a very complex situation, but at the same time, very clear situation. The body exists because exists the relationship between this kind of transfer and this kind of connection. So I'm talking about what I am doing. I am doing a research about what happened from on architecture with this book, this important book, The Leaders New York, and so I would like to show this video that it's very fun because it's the moment that they put together very clear and very close the relationship between the book of The Leaders New York to the animals, because I think that The Leaders New York is the book about exclusion, the book about the animals, the vegetables, and is the book that only understand that it's the building, the only way to enact the architecture. So this is the question, and the architect is the only God that can establish the relationship with the space. No, so it's a concept of exclusion that it's very clear. It's very clear in this book. Is what I am trying to develop at this moment. So this is very quickly some small views that what I am thinking, what I am trying to do, and what I am trying to share with you of my work.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Bom dia, boa tarde já, porque é mais de mediodía. Thank you. And in this conversation we have lost Animali Domestic, but we are waiting for. And meanwhile, I just wanna ask also Nuno and Jose Maria Torres Nadal about one question, because in the arts school, but also in the architecture school, we usually learn about how to design, how to build for humans. But what methodology do you follow to investigate these relationships between design, human, and non-human animals? If you want, Nuno, you can answer first.
I'm listening to myself. Wait. For me, it has been a little bit of a discover, because I did graduated like almost 15 years ago, and I came back to school, and I was kind of identified that something was not adapted, like as I was saying in my presentation, and well, I think I discovered this sensitivity actually outside the art field and outside the university. So I became vegan 5 years ago, and I started doing before even like the things that everybody is doing nowadays, like with the garbage, not buying a lot and all these things. And there was a moment that I realized that I was having like an ethical positioning with my person that my work was not following or not entirely following. And yeah, it's like, so I tried to include this a little bit more in my work, and then I was reading like the books that I think everybody's reading here, like Donna Haraway, Bruno Latour, Lynn Margulis, like
But do you have some tool, specifically to, for example, to understand birds or to understand insects, in this case, in your artifact work?
Well, actually, Animali Domestic, I said something that I really like. So it's like this empiric prototyping. So it's like like my method is also quite intuitive. Like I follow, of course, that like I try to have an idea and then I'm trying to see if it works. But I'm not really. I mean, there is a reading, but it's also a lot about the way that following a little bit. Yeah, it's very empirical. I'm trying and.
Okay. Thank you. Now it's the moment for the question to Antonio y Alicia from Animali Domestici, we were talking about what methodology do you follow to understand, to fable with non-human animals, because usually in the architecture and also in the art schools, we don't learn about how to design for them. What do you follow a methodology, or you are testing?
So they have been producing close dialogue with the people that know more than us of the species that we have been working with. So biologists in that sense, or amateur, like there is a huge group of people in these cities that they are nature lovers. And so maybe not really trained, but they spend a lot of time observing and they are very knowledgeable about specific areas. So we have generally engaged with them. And then to obviously the kind of knowledge that we don't have. But at the same time, we also trust in our own observation in a certain way. So really spending, a lot of, in the case of the dragonflies, really a lot of hours sit and, try to understand and became trained in reading like slightly differences was for us an approach. That obviously we understand it's very partial and not, at all as a level of validity that can be extended, but was useful in like creating a sort of, a set of tests and upgrade and adjustment and understanding of failures.
Okay, and in the other side, Jose Maria Torres Nadal, you were full professor in the Alicante University for maybe 20 years, and in this, for example, in this architecture school, we have these kind of programs. How as a university professor, how you think this kind of issues will be interesting for architects and for architecture?
Okay. I think that's my experience in Alicante first, and then in Sydney, and now in Montevideo. I developed this idea of the culture there, and of the culture of this is important for me because I think we are really full, and around us is full of objects and things and etc. etc. And we may understand that all the half of these things and objects are ruined, as Isabel Stenger says, or Rossi Braidotti says. But at the same time, what I understand is thinking about the whole complex of things and animals and different species, etc., and devices, etc. We need to develop what Bruno Latour says, diplomatic encounter. No? And what means diplomatic encounter? Diplomatic encounter, it means to establish for me a new system of languages and a new system of connection in between different parts. No? And the first step to develop this idea is develop the concept of a equivalence between one article and a robot, and a robot and a human body, and a human body and an animal are the same. At the same time, but at the same time, they are developing a new, different kind of technology. I am totally convinced that we need, talking about the school, etc., a new kind of academia. This diplomatic encounter, it means that develop the idea, the vision of the new academia is set of different elements, different bodies, talking about the future of the culture, the ecology, and more precisely, this culture of the earth. No? And this is for me the challenge, at the same time the future.
Thank you, Jose Maria. And Alicia and Antonio were having some technical issues, but I'm going to give the floor to you, because Jose Maria Torres Nadal was also talking about, for example, the role of fibers or of narratives. We are not just talking with the post-humanist post-humanism theories about non-human animals. Your work in this field of post-humanism theories, where is you are working just with non-human animals, or you are also working with? Are you also working with theories, technologies, narratives? What do you think about this?
Sorry, I am in special conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that we see ourselves within this large spectrum. So I guess, can you hear us?
No, Jose Maria is
okay, because we can't see you. Bye. I'm saying bye to technology. No, I guess the main point is understanding this, that we are working within assemblage that are plural, no? And they are made of very different actors, that some of them are obviously the one that we have related and approach in the lectures, and others are of a very different nature and a very different scope. And we do agree very much that also a very important aspect is understand communication strategies within that also relate in a certain way to works that we have done, where the idea of how we communicate stories become very relevant.
In, for example, the work that Alicia was presenting, the tapestry that shows the ecologies and, let's say, the habitation of pythons in the city of Bangkok, that one was first exhibited at the CCA of NTU University in Singapore. And it was in an exhibition about the so-called post-human city, together with various other artists, and it was just in front of the video Liquidity Inc. by Hito Steyer. That is talking about, we thought it was interesting, this connection of having a discourse about post-human city that is very much about multi-species cohabitation and the relationship between living beings, together with a completely different perspective that is looking at systems, that is looking at intelligences that are out of the sphere of living beings, but are intelligences that are developing in the economic systems and in the overall machinery of the world. And the idea of having them all together in dialogue was very inspiring for us, even though, in order to tell about it, it's obviously easier, especially in a short context, to take a slice through it. For example, looking at various species.
So thank you very much for your answer. I just want to close this panel with one last question for Nuno, because Jose Maria is an architect, Animali Domestic, Antonia and Alicia are also architect, and your work is very near to architecture, I think so, because for example, we used to talk about art and the form and the function. What do you think is your framework if we are talking in a disciplinary way? Because you are very close, for example, for the Animali Domestic projects.
Actually, for me, it's not very important to define yourself in one field, but I kind of like industrial design. Not that I would call myself, but I think it's as an artist to pretend to find solutions through the artwork. Maybe I see it more in the side of maybe designing or.
Sorry. Okay. So thank you very much for your participation in this last panel of the first day of the Artifacts Forum de Ideias. See you tomorrow with Andrea Garcia and the other guest speakers at 10:30 Lisbon time. Thank you very much for your patience. Sorry, I apologize for the first technical issues. And it was a pleasure to be with you this midday.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Nice to see everyone. Bye. Thank you.